In Luke 22, verses 39 through 53, we find that the Last Supper has just ended. Jesus has announced that it's about time for him to die, and that one of those men that were sitting there at the table with him for that special occasion would be the one that would betray him to his enemies. Luke tells us that Jesus then went to the Mount of Olives. Matthew and Mark add that there was a garden on that mountain called Gethsemane. And this garden was likely owned by a wealthy family in Jerusalem who allowed Jesus to use this garden. Jesus was known to be a friend of the poor and the sick and the downcast, but he also must have had friends among the wealthy and even some of the religious leaders such as Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. Jesus must have gone to this place to pray in the quiet and the solitude of this garden, for Luke calls it his usual place, and Judas knew that this would be where he was most likely to be found. Jesus urged the disciples to pray and that they not fall into temptation, but he knew what was going to happen, and that he was going to need additional strength for what was about to come. Jesus also prayed for his own temptations. He knew what was waiting for him. Friends, no one wants to die, especially a very painful death. But Jesus was willing to lay down his life for others. Now, at this point, he still could have turned his back and refused the cross, but he didn't do that. And we can only attempt to imagine what Jesus was going through at this time in his life. His prayer gives us some indication of his emotional state, and Luke's description gives us a few more insights. The word cup was used, especially in the Old Testament, as a metaphor for a disaster or other traumatic experience. The word anguish or agony in verse 44 adds to the image of Jesus as he pleaded with God to avoid this terrible death. And even the description of great drops of sweat falling from Jesus' body helps us to better imagine his physical and emotional state, especially when we see that blood was mingled with that sweat. But Jesus' time of prayer was interrupted by the coming of a crowd. Actually, a mob might better describe this group. And the man leading this mob was Judas, Jesus' own disciple. And these men had come to arrest Jesus. Jesus had never harmed anyone. He had only helped people. But there were those there who didn't like what Jesus had to say. They didn't like what Jesus was doing, and they wanted Jesus put to death. There's been much speculation about Judas' motivation to betray Jesus, but for whatever reason it was, he led this mob to Jesus and identified him with a traitor's kiss. In the confusion, one of the disciples attacked a servant of the high priest, and ironically, Jesus steps forward and heals this man, but it had no effect on the crowd. Jesus' words to those who came to arrest him in verse 53 are ones that are so poignant. But this is your hour when darkness reigns. Only Jesus knew the full meaning of these events. The religious leaders had led the opposition to Jesus, but behind them was Satan, the source of all evil doing. And no doubt Satan was very well pleased with the results. But as we will see, the story was not over, and Satan was not going to be victorious. Satan was going to lose in the end. Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for our program today. We hope that you have a wonderful day today. We would like to invite you to join us tonight at 6 o'clock at Pyburn Street Church of Christ for midweek Bible study. We'll have classes available for all ages, and a warm welcome awaits you at the Pyburn Street Church of Christ. May God bless you today with a wonderful day.